I was like,
Right.
what's lymphoma? He's like, you know what? I'll be back. And then I was like, okay, why is he leaving again?
Oh, not good.
He leaves. My mom comes in and she's crying. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, you have lymphoma. I was like, I don't know what that word is. You guys keep using it. And she's like, you have cancer. I was shocked. I was like, cancer from what? What did I do? Usually when I tell my story, I try to tell people, you mentioned we look outside of ourselves for the answer, right? Thanks to science, I got the backup that it's not always outside of you, it's inside of you. The story I was sharing with you when I met you was how I had cancer twice. I'm a two-time cancer survivor of stage 3B Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is cancer of the lymphatic system. So, and when I was diagnosed, I was 23 years old. I was a mom. My kid was 2 years old at the time. When I was relatively newly married, I was maybe 3, 4 years married. It took about almost 7 months before we even figured out I had cancer. I originally just started off having like a cold in like the winter months or whatever. And I went to see the doctor and I was given an antibiotic and the cold went away. But however, a few months later, I had cold symptoms again. And I went back to the doctor. I'm like, I still feel sick. I have these fevers. I just don't feel right. And then he's like, you're also a little bit overweight. You just had a child not that long ago. Maybe we need to change your diet also. We changed my diet. And then another few months passed by. And now we're like into June, July. We're like in the summer months. And by this time, I have a fever of 103, 104 at night. I'm losing weight. I lost 20 pounds out of nowhere. I had missed 17 days of work, not in a row. I was an accounting analyst for a major telecom company out here in Chicago. I got written up because I had missed so much work. And so I had to start forcing myself into work. And I would bring a thermometer with me and be like, hey, I have a fever. Luckily, the bosses could see that I was sick. So I would go home and try to get better. The only reason why I didn't go to an emergency room is because I grew up with a mom who was a nurse. And not that she told me not to go, but it was like the logic was like, why am I going for them to give me Tylenol? I didn't think anything else was wrong with me besides I couldn't just shake this flu or this cold that I had. I went back to my doctor the third time and he was like, I think you need to be on Xanax. Because he started thinking like, I don't know, I was mentally ill, not mentally ill, but like more of a, what is it? The person who always thinks they're sick all the time, a hypochondriac. Yeah. So I was like, so he gave me a script and I was like, screw this script. No. I hired myself a therapist after that appointment. I was starting to talk out my issues or so what I thought were the issues that was causing me to be sick. I'd gone back to work. I was sick again. And I showed my boss like, hey, can I leave? I have a fever. My mom's clinic, she worked for an infectious disease doctor, was just down the road. I drove to her office and she had me see the doctor. And it was weird to me because I was like, why am I seeing an infectious disease doctor? I don't think I have an infectious disease. But we were just tired of me going to my primary and we needed another opinion. But when I went to him, she left the room because I was 23 at the time. So she felt like she didn't need to be in there. And so he goes and he feels my neck and he's asking me the questions. I told him all my symptoms and everything. Then he's like, I need a moment. I was like, okay. Then he leaves the room and he comes back and he's like, I think you have a textbook case of lymphoma. I didn't know what that word meant at the time. And I was like,
Right.
what's lymphoma? He's like, you know what? I'll be back. And then I was like, okay, why is he leaving again?
Oh, not good.
He leaves. My mom comes in and she's crying. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, you have lymphoma. I was like, I don't know what that word is. You guys keep using it. And she's like, you have cancer. I was shocked. I was like, cancer from what? What did I do? And so I was a teenage smoker. And my mom was like, maybe it was the cigarettes you smoked in high school. And at the time I was like, oh my God, okay, maybe. You fast forward, I get admitted to the hospital nearby. And her doctor calls my doctor and pretty much has it out with him. And I get an oncologist assigned to me right away. So, and then the first thing I'll never forget when I met my oncologist, he comes in and he's like an old school doctor. He's a tall doctor, skinny. He has a doctor bag, leather and stuff. And
Oh, wow. Dr. Welby.
yeah, he was
Wow.
an old school doctor. I was like, whatever this cancer is, this guy's going to cure me. I was kind of skeptic about it. And then, so anyways, after he did his official intake of me, I asked him, I said, whatever this cancer is, can it be from smoking? And he said, no. And of course, rebellious me was like, haha, mom, it's not from cigarettes.
Oh my God.
So, but that's the story of how I was officially diagnosed the first time. I went through chemo for 6 months. And back then you couldn't work remote. There was no online working. So I had to take the 6 months off. I went back to work shortly after that. And my cancer was in remission. 3 months later, I was scratching my neck and I felt a lump. So I called my mom and I went back to her doctor. And then her doctor's like, call your oncologist. You probably need to have another biopsy to see what's going on. They did a second biopsy. I had a biopsy the first time I was diagnosed. When I had the biopsy, they're like, yeah, you have cancer again. So I had said, well, what are we doing this time? What's going to be different? My oncologist said, you're going to need a stem cell transplant. But at the time I was right away, because I hear transplant, I think I need a donor.
Me too. I would have thought that too.
And I only have one biological sibling. So already in my head, I'm like preparing to have this conversation with her about like, I need your stem cells, right? Because like, who else am I going to ask? And so
Right.
he had told me, he said, well, let's test you first because there's a chance that your cancer has not hit your stem cells. To also better understand what stem cells are stored in your bone marrow. That's why there's bone marrow transplants and stem cell transplants. What happens is that your stem cells go into your bloodstream over time. And then they become the things that your body needs. Maybe you're low on platelets, maybe you're low on red cells and white cells and all the things. His hope was is that my cancer didn't affect that area of my blood. He did a bone marrow biopsy, which I don't recommend if you don't need one. I felt like a
Right.
bottle of being uncorked because
They say they're painful.
they are painful. They gave me extra twilight and extra pain meds to get me through it. Like I said, don't recommend it. But anyways,
Yeah.
so they did the testing and we found out the cancer didn't hit my bone marrow. I got to be my own donor. And believe it or not, it was a relief because I'm an independent woman. I don't want to ask anyone else me, let alone for your stem cells or some body part. We prepared for that. So the way that looked was I had chemo for a day for like 8 hours prior to my going in. That was like one part of wiping out my system. And then it was to just stabilize the tumors from going anywhere else. Then I was prescribed Neupogen, which is a shot that boosts your cell levels. The whole point is so that we can push my stem cells out of my bone marrow into my bloodstream and they can be extracted.
Ooh, interesting.
So I
Okay.
had to do it for 30 days. For 30 days every day, I had to pinch an inch and just push the medicine through via a needle. That was that was something that I wasn't used to. I have never injected myself before with anything, so to have to do that. Then 30 days later, I go into the clinic, and for those who've never seen what it looks like to give your stem cells away, it's called an apheresis machine. If you've ever given blood, it's a machine that pulls out your blood, but also pulls out what it needs. It was pulling out my stem cells and recycling back everything else into my system.
Okay. Like dialysis, right?
Yeah, like dialysis or giving plasma. Yeah, so it was washing out what it needed, took my stem cells and gave me back everything else. Then from there, I got to go home, live a normal life for about a month. But they always prepare someone who's doing a transplant to see if they can have anybody sign up to be a blood donor in the event you need transfusions. Just in case Link doesn't have your blood type. I'm type O, so I'm pretty good with that stuff. And the telecom company I worked for, my boss came to me and he's like, is there anything you need during this process? We always have Life Source blood drives. I was like, can we ask that? This is way before all the HR rules now. But I was like, can we ask the team if they'd be willing to sign up as my donor if needed? And he did. He blasted out a company email. There was 150 on staff at the time for the division I worked for. And yeah, people signed up. He was one of the first people to sign up, which was awesome.
Amazing.
He was super supportive throughout the whole entire process. That write-up that I had for being out of work 17 days was now written away, magically disappeared, was non-existent once I was diagnosed the first time. So I go into the hospital to be ready for transplant. Back then, in 2002 or 2003, they say that it's going to be 30 days that you'll be in the hospital. Today, it's only 18 days. It's crazy. Technology and everything.
Right, technology.
But yeah, back then, we didn't have iPads. I had to bring magazines, books, VHS tape, the TV combos in the hospital rooms. I literally walked in with DVDs and with a rollaway bag like I was going on a cruise ship. The nurses joke, are you going to Club Med? I guess so. That's what you're calling this.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My question is, what was the response of the doctor that initially kept treating it as though it was the flu or the cold symptoms that you were showing?
The best he could do
Your
was
PCP?
Yeah, my primary care. The best he could do was apologize. He had, according to my mom, she said that he felt so guilty for missing my diagnosis. But like, other than that, it wasn't like he was around during my time of care. Like I was transferred off to the oncologist and I was kind of like, I didn't go back to him once I was done with everything. I changed primaries. I lost trust.
Absolutely.
Right.
Not only that,
Absolutely.
I've been seeing this doctor since I was a teenager. So he was like my family doctor growing up.
And that's a good and bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's good that he knows you, but it also causes, in my opinion, maybe they get a little complacent because they know you.
I feel that way, especially when you look back at comments about like, well, you're overweight, you just had a kid, like you've been through a lot. Maybe you need a Xanax now.
Now I'm psycho, now I'm mental.
Exactly.
Okay.
Tell me about it. I go through the stem cell transplant. I get to the hospital. And so the first week of transplant process is you get high dose chemo. The way I explain it to people, technically laymen who are not experienced with this, is that just imagine like you have a classic car. You're a car collector. You have this classic car and you need to take out all the old parts because you want this car to run, right? But you slowly take out everything and then you slowly replace it with new parts. And you check the oil and you check the things to see if it's all working together. Similar process, except it's utilizing chemotherapy. I had chemo for the first week, and every day they draw your blood and check your numbers. So they want you to go from like whatever healthy numbers are to what they call neutropenic in the medical field. So you're negative everywhere. Your immune system just doesn't exist anymore. And so you're in isolation at the hospital. Everyone has to wash their hands, wear gloves before they see you. No one can come in with a cold. There's no raw food allowed in the room, no flowers, anything that might change the environment for the person's immunocompromised, right? You're bound to get anything that anyone has on because you have nothing to defend yourself with, right? So the best part was, in a sense, was my mental state, because despite not taking Xanax, I'm a very positive minded person. So I was bored, and KayCee knows this about me. I don't want to sit still. I don't sit still. And I'm in this hospital. I'm not even allowed to walk the floor like normal patients can. I only can walk my room. I'm like, is there anything I can do? I'm like, can I visit other cancer patients? Like, come on, let me do something. The hospital I was at here in Chicago was a teaching hospital. I didn't just have the oncologist. I had a training team of doctors who were all residents. They're all taking notes every day for the first round. They were there with their notepads and everything. I just got entertained by asking them questions and them asking me questions and stuff. Anyways, the week goes by and they're like, how do you feel? You know, they're checking my temperatures. Everything's going in the direction it's supposed to, but they were surprised how I wasn't like, for as white as a ghost as I could have been, I had my personality. You know what I mean? Not me. I was just a slower me, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
So yeah, so much so to the point, like one evening, I guess my numbers dropped really bad. My fever spiked up really high and I was sleeping in my room, but I could feel there was a presence. I opened my eyes and there's a doctor at the end of my bed, but it's not my normal oncologist. It's one of the residents who I had built a rapport with. And I said, hey doctor, what's going on? He's like, how do you feel? And I was like, I don't feel so great. He's like, I ordered for an ice mattress to come because your fever is up to 104 and we need to get it down. Literally a twin size ice pack comes rolling into my room. They have to transfer me onto it because my fever is going up so quickly that they're afraid I'm going to go into some kind of shock. That's the kind of care that I had. And that's the things that was happening to my body. Wow. This is long before cold plunges was a thing. Like human ice pack comes in and I get laid onto it and everything. They eventually get my fever down. And by the end of the week, my numbers are supposed to be where they're at. And they're like, okay, we're going to give you your stem cells back now. The nice part is it's not a surgery. It's literally like getting blood. It's like getting a transfusion. They hang the bag of your stem cells, which they have stored in a cryo type freezer and everything. They slowly give it back to you and then they watch to see if you have any reactions because you can have reactions to your own cells. Believe it or not, that's what graft versus host disease is. And so luckily I was okay. I needed 5 units of blood after that. So I had 5 different transfusions. My numbers slowly climbed back up and I got to get out in 18 days. Back then, when the norm was 30. I remember asking my oncologist, it was a day before my son's birthday. My son was born September 1st. I went into the hospital the week of August 18. My transplant was on the 18th. Then, I got to go home the day before. I'd asked my doctor, I said, why am I able to go home faster than what you told me? And he said, honestly, Jemma, I think it was your positive attitude because all you kept doing was looking forward. What's today? What are we doing today? It was never like, woe is me. Why am I here? It was never none of that. It was just like, I'm here. You gave me the assignment. So what is the next step?
I love that.